Hi, everybody. I get asked a lot, as most professional cooks do, what is your favorite knife? What knife should I buy? What do I need to look for when I go start my knife collection, which it will ultimately end up being? Anybody that spent any time in the kitchen, you're going to start collecting knives, cutlery of some type or another. My collection is probably close to 100 knives of various shapes, sizes, and jobs. What I've got here is just a few. If I had to cull them down, and the ones that I would use on a normal, regular basis, and why. So let's start with that. Um, the one y'all have seen me use the most is a common chef's knife. This one's about an 8-inch blade. 8 to 10-inch blade is what you're looking for. You also need to feel it, so be really skeptical if you order anything offline. It's got to fit your hand. If it doesn't fit your hand, if it's too small, if it's too big, you're going to injure yourself. And you're not going to have good food coming out of it because you're going to be in the hospital, and hospital food is not good. So, what this one does, and the proper way to hold a knife is to pinch it right here at the hilt between your thumb and your index finger. And that kind of creates a balance, a pivot point. And that's how, you see a lot of these chefs go along and do this really fast motion. They're not trying to show off. It's a matter of technique. I will teach you the technique over time, and it saves a lot of time. It creates a better looking food, and you end up with all the fingers that you started off with. So the basic chef knife, what I look for with a knife, this particular one has got a little bit of a curve up here, so that it actually has a little bit of rocking motion to go with it, so that what I do when I'm chopping something, I'll kind of anchor it into the end of the cutting board, and then using what's known as the claw, your knife is actually going against either your first knuckle or your second knuckle. It depends on your technique, but make sure all your fingertips are tucked back and your thumb is tucked back out of the way, holding food, and you can actually just kind of rock the knife because you're pivoting here. You just hold them with two fingers, but you're pivoting here. Now, one of the key things that I look for is how much space is actually here so that my fingers have clearance. Okay, if I take a knife like this, it's got a much shorter area here than this one does. So if I go to chop, my knuckles are hitting the board before the knife does. Okay, I won't almost have enough room under there for my finger. So with a basic chef knife, this is going to do the bulk of the work for you in the kitchen. It's heavy, it's balanced, it feels good, it's heavy duty enough to actually get the job done. My personal thing is that back here you've got enough room not to bust your knuckles. And make sure that where you pinch it is comfortable. Make sure it's not, doesn't have any rough places on it. If it does, get your file it down, make it smooth. If you do enough cutting, you're going to end up with callus. That's normal. So, it's got to be comfortable. It's got to be usable. So what I look for is about an 8-inch blade, 8 to 10, little bit of a bevel for me because I like that rocking motion, and enough clearance on this part of the knife so that my fingers don't bang into the cutting board. So that's my basic chef knife. A serrated knife. Every good collection should have a serrated knife. If you're going to cut bread, if you're going to cut cake, if you're going to cut any kind of pastry, if you use a straight edge knife, you're going to smash it. If you use a serrated edge knife, it's got the little saw teeth in it, it's going to cut through and not crush your bread. This one is big enough to go through most loaves of bread. It's great on cakes. It's a good overall knife. Does not have the big dip back here because I'm not doing this number with it. So that one's not so much of an issue. A utility knife, just a plain little something. It can be whatever. It can be a paring knife. It's kind of your little grunt guy. It's gonna go. You get a package of cauliflower and it's wrapped up in saran wrap. This is gonna be the thing to cut it. This is gonna be kind of the workhorse that you go to, that you're not going to damage the blade on your main knife. This is the little workhorse that's going to open the packages for you. It's going to, whatever you needed to do, rough and tumble, that's this little guy. Think of it kind of like a 2-year-old that's into everything. A good fillet knife. Fillet knife should have a long, slender blade it should be very flexible. You should be able to bend it very easily. What you're wanting out of a fillet knife is to be able to go around bone. So if you hit a bone, you can still curve it. I don't know the best way to get you to see this, but the blade is curving. So if you can get it to curve around the bone, then you're going to be able to harvest a lot more meat off of that roast or that Thanksgiving turkey or whatever. But make sure you've got one. It's got a long, slender blade on it, and it's flexible. If it doesn't bend, it's not going to be a good fillet knife. So just stay away from that one. A cleaver. You've seen me pull the cleaver out before, but you haven't really seen me use it too much. You don't really use a cleaver a lot. It just looks good, and if you want to just like scream and run around the kitchen with it, that's fine. Although I wouldn't recommend it because you shouldn't run with sharp things. But what my cleaver's got is like a rainbow edge on it so that I can do this rocking motion. And it's heavy. It's the heaviest thing that's out here. It's probably heavier than any 2 or 3 put together. But if you've got something here, the rocking motion and the weight is going to help cut through everything. So you're not actually picking the thing up and chopping it and wearing your wrist in. Still do the same pinch, that's technique. But anything that's got this curve to the blade, that is going to be a rocker blade, and it's going to make your chopping easier. Even if you don't go through the whole rocking motion, it's going to do a half rock, and that's still going to help you cut stuff up the way it needs to be. Whether you're doing a small dice, a medium dice, a julienne, we'll get into all that later. If you want to know more of the terms, go to the website, thestoreinstanton.com, and you'll be able to go to, there's a term page there with the difference between a small dice, medium dice, julienne. All that stuff is there. So the cleaver is, if you want to debone something as far as dismember, like breaking down a chicken, for example, this is good to come in and just really wreak carnage within the carcass. It's also good if you've got some chicken you want to cut up for a chicken salad. This will really go to town on it real quick. So this is kind of the guy that you would go to create carnage all over your cutting board, and that's fine. This one is a pastry knife. Some people call it a dough scraper. This is going to be the thing if you're making scones, those little triangular scones. If you're making scones, if you want to make gnocchi, if you want to get into, picture your dough here and you want to cut scones out of it. I know I said this is for breads, but this is for cooked breads. This is going to be for the raw stuff. So you've got your little wad of dough here, and you want to divide it out into 4. This would be the guy that would do it, because it's going to come down nice, clean cuts, nice, clean edges. It's also great for scraping the cutting board, getting everything up off of it. But if you're making gnocchi, roll it out, and then you would cut this in little 1-inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch divisions. So a good pastry knife is good to have. This one is kind of my number 2 to this one. Again, I've got some clearance here so that my finger is not going to bang on the cutting board. If I'm doing grapes or cherry tomatoes, this is kind of overkill, and it's got kind of a sharp point. So if I've got a little grape here and I need to try to cut it in half or quarters or eighths or whatever, this is a dangerous thing swinging around my fingers. I'm going to jab myself in the hand. I'm going to, it's just too much for the job. That's where this comes in. It's got a nice rounded edge, so if I'm cutting a grape and I go to hit my finger with it, it's blunt. I'm not going to bleed. So that's a good thing. Not bleeding is a good thing, if anybody ever asks. But this is, this again with the pinching here, this is what you would use to slice those cherry tomatoes or quarter those grapes, or half your olives or whatever it is. This little guy here, a lot of the same criteria as this guy, only this guy's going to be a little bit different for more fine-tuned work, so that for whatever it is you need to do. You need to garnish that salad, and you need to come in, you can roll up your basil leaves, and then you can do like a chiffonade on it. This would be a great thing for that. So that's kind of my main workhorses. The honorable mentions over here, It looks like a cleaver. It's actually a vegetable chopper. And what makes this different than this is the curve of the blade. This little guy's got a straight blade. This big guy's got a curved blade. So what happens is, it just comes straight down. It's a straight cut on the cutting board. And if you're doing celery, and it's done. What these two have that this doesn't is a wide area to slide up and down on your hand. Because you've got enough room here to clear that stalk of celery, come down on it, and clear it and come down on it, and keep your fingers out of the way because this is wide. It's flat, so you're going to have to, it's going to have to actually pick it up, but it's light. It's lighter than this one. But if you've got your celery here, you do the pinch thing, and then you come through, and you can just chop it, keep the claw going, hold the celery, and then you can come through and do your chop. So this is a little vegetable chopper, really nice to have. It's not nearly as intimidating as this. The other thing is another type of knife. It's got a straighter blade to it also, again with the finger clearance here, but this would be another good option. I like this one if I'm doing like carrots. It's got a little, a stout blade. It's a wide blade, it's a flat blade. So if I'm coming through and I'm doing carrots, this works well. Again, I'm going to default to this one more than I'm going to default to this one. Another one just for like cutting long stuff. If you were doing, you're making, I don't know, croutons, and you've got a baguette here, this would be good to cut that, because it's not going to matter if you're going to squish it, because it's going to get squished anyway. If you're trying to do a slice of birthday cake and you need to cut down through the frosting, this guy would be a good option for that. You're not going to do a whole lot of heavy chopping because you don't have the room here. And you've got a little bit of a rocker blade here, so that when you come down on the cake or pie, whichever, either one, then you can come down. But you're going to be holding it, and you're going to come down, and then you're going to come up and out. So that would be the honorable mention. So that's kind of what I got. That's the knives that I use, and that's why I use them. We'll get into sharpening knives another day. But if you got any questions, yell out, leave them in the comments below. Let us know what you think of what we're doing. This was a little more casual, a little quicker video. Hopefully you got a little something out of it. Have a great day.